I would like you to sit with me for a few minutes. Have a cup of tea or coffee while I explain what we are doing on this YouTube channel. It's storytelling time. Yay! I love telling stories to children, especially young children. There's so many amazing books out there to use when you're doing storytelling with children. Some of them are absolutely hilarious. Look at this one. Alan's Big Scary Teeth. This is amazing because it's all about an alligator. There he is, look, with his scary teeth. What we don't know until we get halfway through the book is that actually Alan's teeth are false. Oh, that is so funny. And I remember my granddaughter telling me when she was 5, Grandma, she was so really concerned and wanting me to hear this. Grandma, I said, what is it? And she said, you know, old people, they can take the teeth out. So beware all you grandparents who are doing storytelling. Those little children might be just looking up into your mouth and thinking, are those teeth real? I am a retired primary and early years teacher, so I have a lot of experience of telling stories to young children. Watch the video to get a better understanding of how to read or tell stories to young children 1 to 7 years of age. Frank Cotterill Boyce, Waterstone's Children's Laureate, says that being read to regularly is a fundamental right that provides massive advantages in life. He states that shared reading builds crucial emotional bonds, supports mental well-being, and prevents children from falling behind. Children become obsessed with the characters in the books. The Gruffalo. Oh my gosh, my grandchildren, or two of them, they have Gruffalo slippers. When I went to visit them, we went to a market, there were some Gruffalo hoodies. And I said to my daughter, I were to buy those for their birthdays. And she said, oh, no, it's okay. I bought them, and 2 years on, they are still wearing them with the little hood up and the Gruffalo on the back. They absolutely love those tops. It's like Peppa Pig, you know. Everywhere you go, you see children with Peppa Pig. You see them with their slippers or little costumes, dressed as Peppa Pig. Superman the same, you know, walking around town or going to nursery or wherever, wearing these costumes because they love these heroes from the books. And with the book Stickman, you can follow on with other things. So I have a friend who collected sticks and actually made walking sticks out of them, carved them. Look at that. Got a dragon at the end. Beautiful stick. And of course, you grandmas and grandfathers who go out walking, maybe take your grandchildren into the woods to find some sticks. You might be very glad of something like this to hold you up after all the energy you've used on your grandchildren. When telling story to children, you can actually pause and see if they can tell you what's coming next. So you could pause and expect the word that comes next from the children, or you could say to them, what do you think comes next? I'm going to read a short piece from the Hairy Maclary book and as an example. They sniffed at the smells and they snooped at each door when suddenly out of the shadows they saw. What do you think they saw? Scarface Claw, the toughest Tom in town. And if the children are familiar with the book, they will say, Scarface Claw, it's Scarface Claw. And for slightly older children, we've got like the David Walliams, children like his books. This one is There's a Snake in My School. So plenty of laughs there in that one. And actually, I remember my uncle who taught plumbing in a college, and he told me one of his students had a bag at the side of his chair and it was moving. And he was a bit intrigued about this. And then at the end of the lesson, he went over to him and said, what's in your bag? It's moving. He said, a snake. He had a python in his snake and he'd gone to college with it. Children will howl laughing at this. Look at this. Got some pants, big ones, to go with that story. So you can use this as a prop and you can get the children to actually put these on. I've got two pairs, a red pair and a blue pair. They can put these on and you can tell the story and you can ask them to collect things around the house, you know. Get me something that begins with K, and they have to go and get it and put down the pants. So they end up with a pair of underpants filled with all these things. They are learning to read at the same time because you're using the initial letter sound. So can you find me something beginning with P? So I might grab a paper from somewhere, put it inside the pants. And visual aids are really good. I've got a visual aid that I use when I tell this story about the very hungry caterpillar. Here we are, look. There's the very hungry caterpillar. And there's a little song that goes with it. I am absolutely terrible at singing, but I always, when I read this story to children, I usually end up singing the song about the caterpillar. And it's about a little girl called Arabella Miller, and she finds a furry caterpillar. First it crawls upon her mother, then upon her baby brother. And she throws it down. "Ooh," said Arabella Miller, "take away that caterpillar." And children love holding this and singing that little song. I'm not singing it for you because I am the worst singer ever. Puppets, very, very useful for storytelling. You won't have a book with pictures in, but you can make the story up as you go along and make up the names of the puppets. I call this one Wendy usually, and Wendy is not a happy girl, is she? Look at her mouth. So you can tell a sad story about Wendy, or you could tell a story about she's not happy because she has to wear glasses and she doesn't like that. So you can actually make up a story about how it can be a positive thing. Okay, she's got a little school uniform on as well, so suitable for little ones, reception age as well. We've also got some friends of Wendy's. So this is one of her friends. She's very happy. Look, she's very happy because her mummy has just read her a story, one of her favourite stories. And you can make up a name for the puppet and you can make up your own little story. So it can be about anything. This one might be that she'd been very good at school, so she went home to tell her parents. This one can be that somebody did something horrible to her at nursery or even at home and made her feel sad. We've also got another puppet here. Again, you can make up a name. This one is an angry boy. So what's happened to him to make him angry? Maybe his brothers told him off or said something horrible to him. Yeah, so he's gnashing his teeth. And this is really funny because sometimes when I read this, the trousers fall down. They fall down. And then the children start laughing and they, oops, I need to put some more elastic in those trousers. The grandchildren have been. Now it's time to tidy up. But first of all, I need to get up off the floor. I am a grandma. It's really difficult. Oh, if I put my hand, oh golly, put my hand on the settee. Wow, use a stick. Oh my gosh, oh, to be young again. Me and my friends. And today we're going to talk about storytelling, telling stories to young children. What a delightful thing that is. What a lovely thing to do for parents and also for grandparents and anybody else who likes telling stories. Yeah. So there's lots of things to learn, and one of the things that we need to do is, before we ever start to read a story to the children, we must have read it ourselves first. That is so important, because sometimes you get words in those stories that are not really suitable for the age group that you are reading to. So select your book, have a look at the words in there, and also the sentence construction. It might be too difficult for the children to understand. So it's very important that we are aware of not only what the books say is suitable for the age group that you're with, but also that you know your children and know what words they will understand. Sometimes they surprise you. So, for example, my little grandson, who had just gone 3 years of age, in the cafe, looked at the counter and said, "I want a croissant." And there was one there on the counter. And we were so shocked, because you think, where's he got that from? And he got it from storybooks and from maybe visiting France. So, some children might not have a clue what a croissant is. Some children will know. So these things you do need to consider. You also need to consider if you've got several children in the house and they all want to have a story, if they're different ages, are these books suitable for all of the children? So it might be that you need to tell stories one-on-one and not as a group. You might have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, so obviously you're going to choose different books for those age groups. So make sure that you select your book carefully. Take the children into your confidence and introduce the book. So you might talk about what is going to be in the book. Lots of children obviously go to the dentist, they go to a hospital, or they know that people go to hospital or are in hospital. And you might have storybooks about those things. So you might talk about, we're going to the dentist, or I heard you went to the dentist for a checkup. And what was that like? And let them talk about that, and then introduce that book. And now this story is all about going to the dentist. And they will be much more interested than if you just pick a book up and start reading it. Okay. You need to use your voice appropriately. Make sure you have, I'm from Yorkshire, my voice is very, very flat. I have to really think about that when I'm telling stories to children. I have to try and put in a bit of a, make it more musical, so there's a rise and fall of my voice. And I don't want to, if it's flat all the time, then it's going to sound boring. So try and make it very interesting by using your voice. And if there's different characters in the book, then you can take on the voices of the different characters. So there might be an older person, maybe a man who might talk very deeply. You might have a woman in there who has a higher voice. So you might higher your voice, and when you are talking about what she is saying in the story. So lots of things to consider. Another thing is the pictures in the book. They're so important. For very young children, we only need to have very simple pictures on a page. And also very few words, if any. So if the children are under 1, for example, you would have, say, maybe a board book, one that they're not going to tear the pages. And also one that they can actually turn the pages of that book themselves. If it's not a board book, they might tear the pages, so think about that. Cloth books also for very young children are very suitable. So very simple pictures, lots of colour in there, and lots of consideration about how many words are on each page. 1 word is absolutely ample for very young children. As the children are getting older, you can introduce more complex pictures. So you can show them books with lots of things happening on the pages, and obviously lots more words. So you have sentences, sometimes quite complex sentences. And often with the books, storybooks, they rhyme, so that when you're telling the story, the story, the words rhyme, and you can talk about that with the children. And this is so important today, because speech and language helps. If they have good speech and good language, it's going to help them in every area of the curriculum once they start school. And so make sure that you are telling lots of stories to children, a variety of stories, and stories that they are interested in. It doesn't have to be just stories that you are interested in, but also stories that the children are interested in. If they're not interested, they're going to switch off and they're not going to listen. Oh, I know that from experience. I've been through that. So I know that my voice and the book is very important to keep the children's interests. So find a little spot that's going to be suitable. I prefer to sit on a chair or on the settee. At bedtime, I often read stories to my grandchildren in bed. And you know what? Sometimes I end up falling asleep with the children. I send myself to sleep. So, yeah, choose where you want to sit, and make sure you're comfortable, and make sure the children are comfortable, and try and find a spot where there's not too many distractions. If there's a lot of noise, if you're in the kitchen, for example, you might have the dishwasher on, or the washing machine, or something bubbling away in a pan. That's not suitable, because the children will be distracted. So a quiet place would be really good. And let the children be involved. Don't just tell the story, but let them turn the pages in the book. Then they learn that we tell the story from left to right. Many children start school today and they don't even know that the story goes from left to right in the book, and that they have to turn the pages in a particular way. They don't have those skills. It's really quite sad. But if children have lots of experience of being read to and see how that works, and they're prepared. They're prepared for stories once they go to school. When I was working in school quite a long time ago now, we asked the children to bring a book in from home. It was so sad. It was a disadvantaged area where I was working in the school, and one child brought an Argos catalogue. That was the only book in their house. Yeah, remember, you can borrow books for free from your local library, or you can go to a charity shop. They usually have lots of books at very cheap prices. So if you can, please try and read lots to your children and grandchildren, and choose a variety of books for them. Let them be involved. You can stop the story and talk to them about what's on the pictures. You can talk to them about what do you think comes next. If we turn the page, what do you think is going to be on the next page? So you're allowing them to use their imagination and thinking skills. So they're not just listening, they're actually really thinking about that story and what it's all about. Use your voice appropriately and ask the children sometimes to fill in where you have perhaps created a little gap. So you know what they're like. You read a story and the little ones say, again. So you might read that story over and over in one storytelling session. So they get to know the words and they get to know what comes next. It's quite hilarious, really. So you can stop, have a silence, and let the children fill in what they will remember. It's incredible. They will tell you what the word is that comes next, if they are very familiar with the book. We need to make sure that we pause at the correct places when we are storytelling and don't rush it. If there's a full stop, then make sure you wait about 3 seconds before moving on to the next sentence. And if there's a comma in the book, again, you do need to have a pause. But for very young children, obviously, you won't see the commas and the full stops. You just see the words. Okay. As the children get older and the language in the stories become more complex, that's when there's more grammar introduced. And later on, you can start talking about that with them. So you might say, why do you think there's an exclamation mark here? See if they can tell you. Children often interrupt you when you're telling your story, you're reading your story. So you have to try not to stop, because it does stop the flow. There's all, they shuffle about, they start telling you about a story about something that's connected with the story. Don't get into a conversation about those things. You can at the end of the story, but not during the story. Otherwise, you're never going to get through it, and they'll forget what the story's about anyway. So try not to have any interruptions from the children. If you're very good at storytelling, then you might tell a story without a book. And I know my grandchildren often say, can you tell me a story about when you were little? So I have to think about things that are funny or things that they would be really interested in and tell the story. No book and no props, just like to listen. So you have to decide, do I want to use a book? Do I want to use props? Or am I just going to use puppets, for example? Puppets are really good for storytelling and it helps the children to focus. One of the problems with using puppets is they often want to use them themselves, so they're trying to grab them, and that might just disturb the way you're telling the story. You know your children, so you can tell those stories in the way that you think is suitable. You can go to our homepage, grandmacath.com, and download the PDF file. There you will see the books we have used.